All right. So hopefully you can hear me. I'm gonna pick it up in Revelation, the 17th chapter, and I'm gonna just pick it up again at verse 3. So it says here, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, this woman is riding this beast. Now, this woman is representative of a church, but it is not his church. His church is none other than Israel. And when you see Israel, and when you see the church, is often given in the feminine because the Yehoshua or Jesus is the bridegroom. And so just like he went into a covenant with his church or with his bride. It was introduced in Exodus, the 19th chapter, and ratified, confirmed in the 24th chapter of Exodus. That was a covenant of marriage, but that was his church, right? But here it's talking about one that is a woman, but it is not his church. This woman is not a bride. This woman is a prostitute. Okay. And the prostitution that it's talking about here is not a physical prostitution. It is a spiritual prostitute. Okay, so it says here, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. Now that is significant of the immense wealth that this particular church has. And this particular church that is mentioned here is none other than the Roman Catholic Church. They have wealth unparalleled. Okay, if you start looking at the banks, if you start looking at how they operate, even they have artwork that is you can't even put a price on it, and they have wealth that you can't even put a price on. You can't put a monetary price on how much wealth they actually have and all the artifacts that they have that the world will never know. So now it says but then it says something else, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. What is that referring to? That is referring to the false doctrine of this church. So like that's where you get Easter, Christmas, Sunday worship, Lent, right? The Trinity, the worship of the Queen of Heaven, the Eucharist, right? All the idolatry, right? All this false worship. That's the concept of the soul that it was popularized in Christendom by the Roman Catholic Church. So it says, then it says something else. And just so we know, it says 7 heads. What are the 7 heads referring to? Back in verse 3, I want you to know this. It tells you in verse 9, and here is wisdom, and here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Rome was built on 7 hills. That's what that's referring to. So where is Vatican City, which is where you had a Roman Catholic Church? That is in Rome. Okay, so now it says, again, having in verse 4, back to verse 4, at the end of it, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. That's referring to what? That's referring to bad doctrine. Notice what it says here in verse 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. See, it's a Mystery Babylon. Why Babylon? Because all false worship began in Babylon. And the Roman Catholic Church is continuing the mystery system that was found, a spiritual system that was established in Babylon. But what it does is it's a mystery, because what it has done is it has put a veneer over it. It has put, like, for example, the mother-son worship that began in Babylon, you see it in Catholicism, but they say, well, that's Mary and that's Christ, right? All the worship that was going on in Babylon, for the most part, you see it in Catholicism. They continue it under the guise of worship of Christ. And so that's where the confusion comes in. But now if you were in paganism, because it all started in Babylon, secular history tells you that. I'm talking about false worship. Secular history tells you it started in Babylon. The text tells you it started in Babylon. And so what happens is they perpetuate it. And if you were a pagan dealing with that, because everywhere else, the same type of worship is continued under different names. So what happens is, if you are a pagan and the universal church is giving you the same thing that you've been worshiping under the guise of Mary and Jesus, a true pagan understands that. They recognize what they're doing. Now you got some that are just ignorant of the fact, but those who are pagans and those who are dealing with the occult, they understand full well the symbolism that is all throughout Catholicism and all the sun worship that is blatant in front of your face. Like, for example, you go to St. Peter's Basilica. Do you understand? St. Peter's Basilica, for example, has an obelisk right in the circle there, and it has the wheel of the, do you know that represents the sex act? Do you know that is Baal shaft? And when you look at it in full, it is the whole entirety of the building, which I've shown in lesson a number of times, is an actual male shaft. Because why? Because that represents power. They actually literally through their symbolism carry out the sex act of regeneration, which is a principle that they acknowledge, which is a principle that you see in paganism wholesale. They had that right in St. Peter's Basilica, right in your face. And people walk all over that circle, come, tourists go to visit, not even knowing what they're looking at. But now, nevertheless, it said Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. It says not just a mother, we know it's a woman called, it says the mother of harlots. How so? What came out of Catholicism? All these Protestant denominations. Again, Baptist, Southern Baptist, Episcopal, Apostolic, Lutheran, Methodist Episcopalian, African Methodist Episcopalian, Kojic, all of these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, you can go on and on and on with these denominations. They are whores. Okay, spiritually speaking, their mother is Rome, the Roman Catholic Church. She birthed all these illegitimate children that are now claiming that they are the church. But your mama in Rome said she the church, and you can't even have salvation except through her. That's what she tells you. That's what Catholics actually teach. That's the only way for salvation. When their church is straight up satanic. You can even read their own scholars where they tell you that, for example, Malachi Martin, he tells you about the Luciferianism within the Catholic Church. You can even read the writings of Catholic scholars who tell you, yes, what we call the Antichrist is coming out of Rome. They tell you that. You don't have to go to the Protestants and read Jonathan Edwards and other famed Protestant preachers and scholars and theologians who told you that. Rome will tell you that. The Roman Catholic Church will tell you that. So that's not the church. They claim to be the church. Anytime it's so bad when you read about Christianity, oftentimes they will say the church and they're talking about Rome. That's everywhere. Wholesale. That's the church is in Rome. But where is the church? Let's go to Acts the 7th chapter. Acts of the Apostles chapter 7. Where is the church in actuality? Prior to being martyred, Stephen told you. This is verse 37, Acts 7 and verse 37. It reads as follows. He said, this is that Moses, which said unto the children of Israel, a prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you of your brethren, like unto me, him shall ye hear. So now in this particular verse, he is alluding to Deuteronomy, the 18th chapter, and what Moses said, a prophet like unto me was going to rise up. And when you look at Moses' life and Yehoshua's life, they parallel. Now, what else does he say? Verse 38, this is he that was in the church in the wilderness. And he goes on to say, with the angel which spake to him in the Mount Sinai, and with our fathers who received the lively oracles to give unto us. So who is the church? Who received the lively oracles? The lively oracles that I read about in the book of Romans or in Psalms. That's none other than the children of Israel. So now, last place, because when it's all said and done, people are going to recognize who this church is. This is at Isaiah, the 2nd chapter. Isaiah, the 2nd chapter, and we'll pick it up at verse 3. Isaiah, the 2nd chapter and verse 3. Well, actually, let's pick it up at verse 2. It says, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills. Now, that's talking about his government. And all nations shall flow unto it. Notice where they're going. Are they going to Rome? No. Are they going to the Southern Baptist headquarters? No. It says, and many people shall go and say, come ye and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord. Notice what it says, to the house of the God of Jacob, right? Salvation of the Jews. And he said, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Because that's what he's dealing with. And that's even when you read the new covenant, that's who he's dealing with, the same people. So the new covenant is established with them. That's who he gave his life, the oracles unto them. But the new covenant says, I'm going to put it in your heart this time. And you can take hold of that covenant. But the one he went into covenant with is his church. But all praise to the Most High that there's a commonwealth that others can be a part of it. But don't get it twisted. They are not the church. And with that, brothers and sisters, so who's the church? The church is none other than the children of Israel. And I want to remind you that we're at the House of the Faith meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel. We also meet every Sabbath in Stafford, Virginia. Our Stafford, Virginia congregation meets at the Rear Roof Inn at 153 Garrisonville Road in Stafford, Virginia.